Hello and welcome. It's Jessica Drummond here from the Integrative Women's Health Institute. I can't tell you how often I am asked to give examples of how I do the work I do, to talk more about specifics, about case studies, about my experience. So today I'm going to jump into showing you 5 of very common women's health case studies that you'll see in integrative practice, so that no matter what your health or wellness discipline is, you can think about your role in working with these women, whether you're a health coach, physical therapist, fitness professional, nutritionist, dietitian, midwife, physician, naturopath, acupuncturist. Your credentialing, your licensure doesn't matter as much as taking an integrative and holistic view and recognizing when you are hitting the limits of either your understanding or your scope of practice, and you need to be collaborating with other colleagues. So let's jump right into the content and we'll review these case studies together. Today, we're going to discuss case studies in integrative women's health that you may commonly see in your practice as you expand into a more integrative specialty, and particularly as you expand into working in a women's health specialty from that approach. So please, this is going to be content rich. I have so much to share with you today. Eliminate distractions, close all other windows, silence your cell phone notifications, and find a nice quiet place so that you can focus on what we're going to discuss today. So to introduce myself, in case you don't already know me, I started my career as a physical therapist in outpatient orthopedics, hands-on manual therapy. And within the first couple of years of my career, I became pretty specialized and I started working specifically with women's health clients. And I've done that through the course of my career. I've been a practicing physical therapist for 17 years now. And then along the way, I suffered my own burnout, chronic pain, chronic illness, infertility, all of these vague symptoms. And eventually, in around 2008, I was diagnosed by a functional medicine physician with adrenal fatigue. Now, that's an outdated term. We now talk more about HPA axis dysfunction, HPA axis maladaptation, things like that. But the idea is that my stress response system and my other endocrine systems that interact with my stress response system, such as the other hormones like insulin, my sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, that whole hormonal system just was out of whack in my body. So I went back to school because I did get some help from a functional medicine physician. I really started to understand a more integrative approach to women's health, both rehabilitation and looking at chronic and vague complaints. I can't tell you up to even at that point how many patients I had worked with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, and pelvic pain. Chronic pelvic pain was the most common for the practice that I was in. And I was realizing that a better, deeper understanding of nutrition and lifestyle medicine strategies to balance hormones could not only help to heal my body, which was my initial motivation, but then I, have continued to study more and more deeply every year since then to be able to bring this work back to both my patients and the students that we teach globally. So I train women's health and general health professionals in integrative women's health. I've been doing that professionally and globally for about 3 years now, all over the world. And through my institute, the Integrative Women's Health Institute, which was founded in 2011, the same year that my little Kate was born. She'll be 6 now. So, and older and older every year, right? There she was. I think that was her 3-year-old birthday. But anyway, Kate is such a living example of the fact that I was able to heal my body and have another baby. And at the same time, I birthed this institute, this company, where we work with patients, and our other main mission is educating professionals. So, in the interest of educating professionals, let's talk together about a case, very common kind of case that I would see in my practice where a woman is struggling with secondary infertility, similarly to how I struggled with secondary infertility. So this patient was a 34-year-old mother. She had a 4-year-old son, and now she had been trying to get pregnant for several years to have another baby and was unsuccessful. She had significant fatigue, chronic joint pain, pain in her neck and hands. She had one miscarriage since the birth of her son, and she was taking ibuprofen most days to control the joint pain. She was also taking Cymbalta since moderate postpartum depression occurred after her son's birth and had never really resolved at this point. She was on a standard American diet. She had sugar cravings, poor sleep quality, especially right before her period. She spent a lot of time on her computer at night playing games or scrolling through Facebook during her bouts of depression and insomnia to try to connect and, distract herself. She was so frustrated when she came to see me. She would say things like, "I'm afraid that my body no longer works. I had no problem getting pregnant the first time, but now it feels so hard." She decided that she wanted to try a natural approach to fertility before seeing a reproductive endocrinologist that her obstetrician gynecologist recommended. Very commonly, we do work with patients who are also seeing other physicians, reproductive endocrinologists. They may be working with an acupuncturist. So it's not necessary that they choose only the natural route. In either case, it can be helpful. She had no family history of infertility, but her mother had breast cancer 4 years ago that was now resolved. Her father is obese with high blood pressure. Her sister has no children, but does struggle with moderate depression. She herself was born by a cesarean section, had chronic seasonal allergies as a child. She doesn't know if she was breastfed. She didn't know. She had PMS since starting her period at age 13, was on oral contraceptives from ages 15 to 29 to regulate her periods and reduce menstrual cramping. She cooks 70% of the time at home, doesn't like fish, but is not a picky eater. She drinks 1 coffee per day, but does not drink alcohol. She says in regards to her sleep that she had never been a very good sleeper, but my sleep worsened after the birth of my son. And now I have bouts of insomnia, especially before my period. When I can't sleep, I play games on my computer or scroll through Facebook. She does have a fairly good support network. She enjoys being a stay-at-home mom with her son, but she often felt isolated. So I say she has a fairly good support network. That's not quite true. She had a very supportive husband, but she didn't have a lot of supportive friends with small children, or her family was supportive. They had a good relationship, but they did not live locally. So she didn't have a lot of hands-on support. In terms of exercise, she would walk occasionally and play with her son at the park, but no other exercise program. She complained of moderate constipation and bloating after meals. So in our practice, we use a tool called the Holistic Women's Health Assessment, which gives us a way to more objectively collaborate with the patient to write down her subjective perspective, connection, nourishment, strength, contribution, attention, rest. Because when we, no matter what kind of clinical recommendations I'm going to make, whether it's around exercise or sleep or nutrition, the goal is always to connect those with the kind of health vision, the goals of that particular client. And we have to tap into her strengths and look at where she might be having some weaknesses when it comes to her own participation in her healing. So perspective is about her attitude. Is she optimistic that her body can heal? Connection is about emotional support and that practical, do you have someone to help you pick up your kids when you're really tired or you're not feeling well? And even just a healthy connection with her healing team. Nourishment, is she eating a nutrient-dense diet? Is her digestive function working well so she can absorb that nutrition? But also, is she nourishing her body and her mind with pleasure and art and beauty and sometimes sex and movement and sleep, all these different things that we underestimate. Strength. So does she feel grounded, strong, physically strong in her body, but also what kinds of resources does she have? A lot of great relationships, maybe a really good job that she likes, financial resources, helpful family. Contribution. How well does she feel she's contributing, giving to the world through her, maybe her parenting is a role for contribution, maybe her work, maybe her of some volunteer organizations, art, so many things. And this all depends on the client's perspective. And then attention. So can she attend to things? Is she struggling with brain fog, memory loss, cognitive issues? And is she attending to the things that she wants to be attending to? Rest is so underestimated that it needs its own category. Is she sleeping well? Is she getting quality sleep? Is she just taking time off sometimes and putting her feet up and having some fun and connecting and just, giving herself some downtime, playtime? And the thing is that I use this tool to think about how someone's resilience is from a mind, body, spirit connection. And if any one of these domains is really, really low, it may limit her ability to feel resilient overall until she looks at all of the domains in context. So in this woman's case, her perspective was pessimistic that she would ever be able to have another baby. And that was very upsetting to her. Connection, isolation in terms of, day to day, it was a lot of time spent with her and her baby, but she did have good support from her husband, a caring family from afar that she could talk to. Nourishment, poor diet, lack of hydration, lack of pleasure. Strength, felt weak, in pain, fatigued most days, feels financially dependent on her husband. Contribution, would like to be more present with her family, but she often experiences brain fog. She misses working, but feels too tired to even consider part-time work. She does her best with her son and enjoys taking him to parks and museums when she can. Attention, worsening brain fog, and still struggling with mild depression. Rest, she would say things like, I wake up tired and I don't sleep well at night. So we started with our preconception cleanse program, which is essentially a whole foods anti-inflammatory diet, nutrient dense, no packaged foods, very simple recipes. Shifted away from coffee to herbal tea, more hydration, a big focus on hydration. For her fitness, we connected her with local resources for therapeutic yoga, started with gentle restorative yoga with a yoga therapist to take into account her pain, her fatigue, and her mildly low cortisol levels. Mindfulness and breath work to give her body some time where it was in that more parasympathetic dominant stage, which is really the healing stage for the nervous system. Focused a lot on circadian rhythm because she was up at night playing video games and on Facebook. That was really messing up her sleep. So eliminating blue light exposure. So any exposure from screens, whether it's a computer, a phone, a television. At 8 p.m., I gave her my standard laptop curfew. I've been doing this for years, a laptop curfew. I remember first talking about this. I think it was with Sarah Gottfried. I was like, I give myself a laptop curfew at 8 p.m. And I still try to do that to this day. Increased daylight exposure, walking, being outside with her son for at least 1 hour per day, bedtime routine, Epsom salt baths with lavender at night, and light reading. And a bi-monthly date night babysitter exchange with a preschool friend's family so that her she would have a little bit of time with her husband without feeling limited by her financial resources. Connection, she enrolled in a cooking class with another mother from her son's preschool. She hosted a dinner party with friends, cooking healthfully for her whole family. So really with that preconception cleanse program, that was a trigger for her to start cooking. She started cooking for her whole family. Her husband lost 20 pounds in 3 months, which always irritates my clients when that happens, but it's good for the whole family. After 3 months, she was eating primarily soaked and sprouted grains and beans with some organic poultry and fish. She learned to like some fish from her cooking class. lots of vegetables, low glycemic fruits, some nuts and seeds, added probiotic foods like sauerkraut and kimchi that were non-pasteurized, and digestive enzymes with each meal. She also drank bone broth at least 4 times per week to restore her minerals. And she started on a quality prenatal vitamin with omega-3 fatty acid supplementation, drinking approximately 60 ounces of water per day over the course of the day, leaning it towards the morning so she wouldn't be needing to get up to pee at night. After 6 months, she began a more intense exercise program, tolerated some pelvic floor safe, high intensity interval training exercise a few times a week, and progressed to more intense yoga, continued with intermittent restorative yoga because I didn't want her to let go of the importance of that rest and recovery piece. After 7 months, she lost 25 pounds and returned to a healthy BMI. Results were that she had a much improved relationship with her husband, much happier with her daily life, her friends, more energy with her son, enjoyed cooking, eating, and entertaining. She's sleeping through the night most nights, has just 3 new friends. But, those 3 friends make all the difference when you've got a young child, right? And feeling isolated. She enjoyed yoga, modified high intensity classes at the Y. Her instructor was very supportive. And after 9 months, she was pregnant with her second baby. First trimester, she had significant nausea, but she was able to eat small amounts of whole foods. In the second trimester, her nausea was much better and she had good energy. Her pregnancy is looking at good at this point that I post this for you. She's 20 weeks and healthy. We eliminated over time her need for NSAIDs and collaborated with her psychiatrist to reduce her dose of Cymbalta. So, a lot of this was clinical recommendations that were evidence-based in nutrition and lifestyle strategies. But much of it was really the support, the accountability, tapping into her health vision, looking at the barriers to change for her. What were her resistance points? What were the points where she might have lacked resources or support, and really bringing those in so that she can carry out these recommendations in a more transformative way, such that they're going to last for years and years. And, all through this pregnancy, all through the recovery from this pregnancy and for the rest of her life, and that's where health coaching communication skills are just as important as knowing which is the best prenatal vitamin and which are the best, food sources of probiotics and prebiotic fibers and so forth. Until we can make those recommendations until we're blue in the face, but supporting women over time, every week, every 2 weeks, through the whole course of this coaching engagement was the key to her making these much longer term transformation and getting successfully pregnant. And healthfully pregnant. So the conclusion in this case is that there's no silver bullet approach to optimal fertility. For women who are either struggling with infertility or simply want to optimize their preconception and pregnant health, we have to take a whole woman approach. We have to look at her nutrition. We have to look at detoxification. So for her, shifting to a whole foods, high vitamin B, high cruciferous vegetable diet, lots of healthy fats, was supportive enough of her liver detoxification system that she didn't need significant supplementation beyond her prenatal vitamins. In some clients who have genetic SNPs that can affect detoxification, or they've been exposed to high levels of environmental toxins, or they're simply just not eating enough of some of these supportive nutrients, they may need more targeted detoxification supplementation. And really talking a lot more, I didn't get into this really in this case, but talking a lot more about things like water filters and looking at their exposures to persistent organic pollutants and so forth. Hydration, supplementation to restore nutrient depletions, personalized fitness in collaboration with people in her local area, community, contribution, perspective, gut microbiome, and having a healthy weight. All of these factors were key for her, and this needed to go on for almost a year before she got pregnant. All right, let's look at case study number 2. I see a lot of chronic pelvic pain in my practice, since that's been one of my research focuses and clinical focuses for, nearly 20 years now. It's hard to think that I've been practicing that long, but there you go. So this woman was 31 years old. She had painful sex for 7 years. She works as a teacher. She doesn't have any children. And what happened was, when she came to see me for more nutrition, integrative lifestyle medicine, she had plateaued with regards to her physical therapy. So she still had pain with sex most of the time, but her vaginal dryness had improved. Pelvic floor muscle tightness. She was uncomfortable using dilators. She felt better in general when she would go on vacation and relax, but it didn't improve her pain with sex. She reported having unbalanced hormones and irregular periods starting at age 14. She had endometriosis, which was diagnosed in her teens. She started on the NuvaRing, but it caused her significant side effects, as it does for a lot of my patients. She was unable to tolerate birth control, so she stopped after about a year. Regular massage therapy was helpful, but again, did not resolve her sexual pain. She did have laparoscopic surgery for endometriosis 7 years prior to when I saw her. She also complained of fatigue, especially in the morning, but worsening throughout the day. History of migraines that had improved when she stopped eating so much sugar. So in this case, so remember, we always have to think about what are the limits of our knowledge, the limits of our scope of practice. And we really want to be managing a lot of these cases in an integrative and holistic approach, which means bringing in and collaborating with professionals from other disciplines. So I referred her to a pelvic pain specialist psychotherapist for support with marital communication and sexual relationship. She had a struggling marriage. And pain science education, I gave her some resources, some educational resources based in Butler and Mosley's work. This client was always dieting because she was trying to lose the weight from the birth control several years ago. So we started her also on the preconception cleanse nutrition plan, which is a very simple elimination diet with a focus on healthy fats and restoring lost micronutrients. So her goal was not to get pregnant at this time, but she wanted to be healthy enough and have no pain with sex, so she maybe could do so in a couple of years. She kept a 3-day food journal, which showed significant calorie restriction, lots of reliance on reduced calorie processed foods, organic energy bars, shakes, things like that. So we recommended a higher quality protein powder and homemade versions of some of the food-based snacks with, options for travel-friendly things like Lara bars or U bars, but not having it all be so processed. She had slow digestive function, 3 out of 10 abdominal pain after eating, intermittent constipation. On organic acids test, I saw significant signs of intestinal dysbiosis, but no yeast overgrowth, and there was no stool test available. So we worked on digestive function, mindful eating, chewing 20 to 40 bites, times per bite, taking digestive enzymes, L-glutamine, demulcent herbs, and zinc, bone broth, and high mineral vegetable broth, and fermented foods. I recommended that she return to pelvic floor physical therapy during our work together to see if the collaboration could support breaking through her plateau in progress with regards to physical therapy, her pelvic floor muscle health and flexibility, and her pelvic structural health. With physical therapy, which in this time when she went back, there was added home manual therapy without dilators, but with the support and assistance of her sexual partner, which is always a great bridge back to healthy sexual intimacy. We did a lot of nervous system down training and adaptive neuroplasticity support. So using mitochondrial supplement support, also because she was fatigued and due to the results of her organic acids testing, I saw challenges with fatty acid metabolism, citric acid cycle, oxidative stress, and detoxification. So we added CoQ10, L-carnitine, yoga, 4-7-8 breathing, which is a down training, parasympathetic stimulating breath work, and daily mindfulness meditation practice for 10 minutes per day. Endocrine health, low overall diurnal cortisol with a 9 p.m. cortisol spike to a high level. She would get her second win at night. We see that a lot with women with HPA axis dysfunction. low progesterone to estrogen ratio, low progesterone in general, normal thyroid, sex hormone binding globulin, estrogen, testosterone, and DHEA. So we collaborated. From health coaching is what I did with her, and also referred her for cognitive behavioral therapy with a skilled pelvic pain specialist psychotherapist to normalize her cortisol. Sleep and circadian rhythms were a huge focus for this client. Also things like laptop curfew, daylight light exposure, same time going to bed and waking up. For progesterone, added 1,000 milligrams daily of vitamin C plus daily fertility blend, which is a chaste tree berry supplement, eliminated caffeine and reduced alcohol for this patient. And I'm not really getting into exact details and specifics here. We can talk about that more in our specific courses, but just to give you an overview of how we really approach these clients. It's not just, there's no silver bullet supplement, right? There's no silver bullet exercise. It's not just sleep. It's this constellation of different recommendations, and then really connecting with the client how, when she participates in these recommendations, it connects to her overall vision for what she wants her to be able to do in her life, because she won't be struggling anymore with pain and fatigue and so forth. So she ended up then, of course, with a patient-led multidisciplinary team. She was no longer seeing her endometriosis surgeon. That had been a while ago, but she continued with pelvic floor PT and psychotherapy. I supported her to find a local integrative gynecologist, and we continued with health coaching to build intuitive skills for decision-making. So to build her intuitive muscle. When is she on the right track from an intuitive perspective? How can she use her intuition to make confident decisions about her next steps regarding her health and her life? And then a web of support is an activity that we do to help clients really see on paper the home team support that they have for their recovery. Financial support, emotional support, practical support, things like childcare, housework, day in and day out support from friends, family, and people that you might pay, like a housekeeper or personal chef. Over the course of 6 months, this patient's pain was fully resolved, except for occasional flares when her work stress level increased, or when she went on vacation. There was one time she went on vacation and ate bread, cheese, and drank more wine than usual. These flares were moderate, 5 to 6 out of 10 pain, but she was able to return to pain-free sex within 2 weeks with her personal sort of pain relief recipe, right? So it's not just the one silver bullet supplement. It's not just one getting a good night's sleep. It's this whole recipe that, as she takes ownership of it and implementing in her life, if she kind of goes off the recipe, she adds a little wine to it or adds a little stress to it, she can recalibrate whenever necessary. All right, let's talk about case number 3. This case was really fun because this client came to me pregnant, and she had a history of vulvodynia, which from her history and a lot of conversation we have, and just, the understanding that I have about vulvodynia, I could tell had an autoimmune basis. And interestingly, a lot of times autoimmune conditions tend to reduce significantly or even resolve during pregnancy because of the natural immune suppression of pregnancy. So when we started, her symptoms were 80% resolved already because she was 14 weeks pregnant. And so she was having pain-free sex 3 times a week. She did have a history of depression, but it was being well managed by her medical team. And so what we did was use the opportunity of this pregnancy to minimize postpartum autoimmune flare risk by giving her a gentle whole foods elimination diet, slowly weaning her from grains, dairy, sugar, eggs, and soy, but still eating tons of high protein, high fat, nutrient dense meats, fats, vegetables, low glycemic fruits, and so forth. On organic acids testing, she had slow fatty acid metabolism, so we focused on including more red meat and really absorbing it, chewing, digestive support, Put her on prenatal pro to support need for B12 to help with fatty acid metabolism. The red meat supports carnitine for her low energy production. Well, her low energy production, high energy production markers. Added a collagen supplement, which had quite a bit of arginine. Also to support neurotransmitter health, added magnesium and omega-3 fats within her prenatal vitamin. Also increased fish intake, added 600 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine to help with detoxification. Vital proteins is also high in glycine, so that helped out here for balancing her digestive bacteria. And because her D-lactate was very high and also showing potential L-acidophilus overgrowth, so a bifidobacterium only probiotic, avoiding commercial yogurts high in L-acidophilus, Lactobacillus acidophilus. And so we continued. Pelvic floor myofascial home program is needed. She didn't currently need physical therapy because her sexual pain was so much improved with pregnancy. And I recommended a 6 to 8 week postpartum follow-up with her pelvic specialist PT for, assessment of her muscles, neuromuscular reeducation, scar management, anything she might need after the delivery. I think actually 100% of postpartum pregnant women should see a pelvic floor specialist, physical therapist, 6 to 8 weeks postpartum. That should just be a national rule. That's my opinion and well supported by the literature. Case study so this case study, we are continuing to minimize this woman's postpartum autoimmune flare risk. So again, I'm giving a little more detail here. Put her on prenatal pro, 1 packet twice a day with food. 600 milligrams daily of N-acetylcysteine. I felt really comfortable with this because there is actually some published data on the safety of adding N-acetylcysteine in pregnant women in particular, especially adding it with folate, which would be in her prenatal pro vitamin packet, to prevent recurrent pregnancy loss. So, this makes me feel really comfortable about using it as a safe detoxification support supplement. Claire Labs probiotic, that was bifidobacterium only. Vitamin D testing, she was currently supplementing with 2,000 IUs per day, may need to increase that to protect against postpartum thyroiditis if she has vitamin D deficiency. All right, so that is the strategy for preventing a postpartum autoimmune flare. Really important to get to these women during pregnancy and really optimize their health in pregnancy so they don't feel like complete crap postpartum, and then continue these dietary, nutrition, sleep, self-care, movement all the way through that whole first postpartum year. I mean, I feel like everyone, forget getting your jeans as fast as you can, get your baby belly back. We want women to have a full year of postpartum recovery. That's the perspective I think we should take to get a real depth of healing. All right, case study number 4, optimal postpartum recovery. So this woman, I met her pregnant with her second baby. No. I met her before that. That's right. But she was, we're going to kind of start the discussion of this case. She's now pregnant with baby number 2. We worked together quite a bit after her first pregnancy. I didn't know her during her first pregnancy, but after her first pregnancy, she struggled with diastasis rectus, pelvic organ prolapse, pelvic pain, difficulty exercising, and she was a fitness professional. So the goal here was to make sure that her postpartum recovery, because she was feeling pretty good, healthy pregnancy, we wanted to make sure she wasn't struggling in the same way the second time around. So again, during pregnancy, we were focused on maintaining good nutrition, lifestyle medicine while chasing around her toddler and working as a fitness instructor part-time. She was on a grain-free, sugar-free, dairy-free paleo diet, regular use of bone broth, focus on hydration, lives in a hot climate, and she exercised outside daily. So with pregnancy, we really focused on hydration. Daily fermented foods, added collagen protein powder, prenatal vitamins, 2 grams daily of fish oil, in addition to some low toxin dietary fish whenever she could manage that. Here's an article just to point you to if you want to take a look at my article on the ultimate guide to prenatal vitamins. prepared for postpartum with a web of support. And that web of support, remember, is about really getting a supportive, healing home team of family, friends, practical resources, family to help with childcare, meal planning, pre-meal meal prep, freezing. She actually hired a nutritionist / personal chef locally, someone who was just going to be literally cooking for her for a couple weeks right before delivery and maybe 6 weeks postpartum. And that was huge. It was, so much more valuable than paying for postpartum depression drugs, right? So important to have support postpartum. Follow-up, she did have a follow-up postpartum, 6 weeks with a pelvic specialist physical therapist. This woman also happened to be a yoga instructor, which was fantastic. She was able to get her gently right back into exercise, which was one of her goals. And what I loved about this, because again, we really have to collaborate, people. So her physical therapist, yoga instructor said to me, she has the healthiest postpartum pelvic floor tissues I have ever seen, right? So we just have to prepare. Working in the field of integrative women's health just is so exciting because this is actually an opportunity to practice preventative medicine. All right, so she resumed with the help of her physical therapist, safe core and pelvic floor exercise, and I supported her to maintain her nutrition, lifestyle, and supplement plan all through the breastfeeding year. Case study number 5. So this woman, 28 years old, she had a 12-year history of vulvodynia, painful IBS, which was throughout her lifetime. Plus, she reported that her mother and grandmother always, had IBS as long as she could remember. Her nutrition recommendations were based in part on some genetic markers, which was so interesting. We actually had genetic data for this patient. She had elevated serum homocysteine, which was not unexpected given her MTHFR and SNPs, the C677T SNP. So sublingual methylcobalamin, 2,000 milligrams, and later we collaborated with her functional medicine physician to consider adding active form of folate, methylfolate, and likely need for B6 because, again, she had a CBS SNP. So this genetic data can be really helpful in women with pelvic pain. Also, she responded well to N-acetylcysteine and other glutathione precursors to help support the challenges that her genetics gave her in detoxification. And we had to pay attention to whether or not she could absorb. So we can give her, we can look at her genetic data, just take a great look at her genetic data and say, these are the micronutrient supplements you need, and give them to her. But if her digestive function is limited and she can't absorb the food and supplements that contain those missing micronutrients, it's not going to be very helpful. So we have to start with digestive health. So here's some of her genetic data, which was interesting. This patient was vegan for personal reasons. So we did a 3-week elimination diet, avoiding meat, fish, dairy, soy, all grains except quinoa, peanuts, sugar, corn, and artificial sweeteners. Eliminated caffeine completely and limited alcohol to 1 drink per day or less with food. Continued to eat eggs and legumes except for peanuts. Patient was instructed not to limit calories and to eat when she felt hungry. And here's the publication at the bottom there if you want to read the full paper. She presented with elevated lactoferrin and calprotectin, low secretory IgA, signs of bowel inflammation and low immune function in the bowel mucosa. So we also added fiber, prebiotic fiber, and a high-quality probiotic. She also presented with low pancreatic elastase, inefficient digestive enzyme function. So we added betaine, HCl, and digestive enzymes, but that was not well tolerated by this client. She also had challenges with painful menstruation. So we added 1 gram daily of omega-3 fatty acid, a high-quality supplement. Low insufficient vitamin D at 31, so added 5,000 IUs daily of vitamin D3. Low magnesium, and so also added magnesium 360 milligrams per day. So her final food plan after we did the elimination and re-challenge protocol was vegan, but to avoid soy and goat dairy. In fact, she felt even better long-term with complete reduction in gluten and all dairy and having a high nutrient dense. I mean, she was eating tons of healthy fats, tons of plant-based proteins, lots of vegetables and fruits. Continued with the omega-3 fish oil, vitamin D3, vitamin B12, probiotic, magnesium, and fiber for the long term, more than 6 months. In conclusion, this patient is now in a new sexual relationship. She's pain-free with occasional follow-up with physical therapy, and her IBS is completely resolved. After 3 generations of IBS, using this approach, we were able to resolve it. So exciting. Thank you so much for joining me today. That was kind of a whirlwind, right? We covered 5 case studies that demonstrated how to successfully use an integrative women's health approach in infertility, painful sex, postpartum immunity and general recovery, vulvodynia, and IBS. While this webinar was simply an overview, there are many clinical pearls that I hope you will bring back with you to your practice. And I hope you'll consider deepening your training in an integrative women's health approach to expand your skills and your confidence in addressing these common and complex conditions. Thanks again for coming today. It was my pleasure to share this important information with you. I look forward to getting to know you better and support you to grow your skills and your practice in integrative women's health.